Hi, I'm Dorothy, and today we're going to make something that I've been wanting to make for a very, very long time, but for one reason or another, I just put it off. I'm so glad I finally got around to making it because it's so good, and it's called a crostata. Now, crostata is the Italian word for it. It's also called a galette, which is the French word. So, Italian, French, I'm going with crostata, which is the Italian version. They're basically the same thing. It's a very rustic dish, and it can be sweet or it can be savory. The one we're going to make today is savory with tomatoes and cheese and herbs. It's very free form, and the dough that you use, I'm showing you today a dough that is a buttermilk biscuit dough that came from Fine Cooking, and it's a really excellent dough. And the reason I chose this is because it's easy, it's good, and you can customize it by putting in your own herbs and spices and whatever you want. However, if you don't want to make your own dough, the puff pastry that you can get in the grocery store works just fine. Just don't go with phyllo dough. That's a little too thin, it won't work very well. So follow me and I'll show you how to make a very easy, a very rustic, and a very delicious crostata. Okay, first up are the tomatoes. The reason they're first up is that we're going to salt them and let them sit while we're making the dough. I'm using 5 heirloom tomatoes that came from our garden. You don't have to use heirloom tomatoes, any will work, but heirlooms are great because they're so colorful and have all these different tastes. So cut them into thick slices, and then I'm going to weigh them to be 1.5 pounds. I'm just weighing them to standardize the recipe. You don't need to weigh them. So about 5 medium-sized tomatoes, and the kind I'm using, if you're interested, this orange one is a persimmon, and then I sliced up this purple one here, which is a Paul Robeson, and the bright red one is Boxcar Willie, and the pale yellow is called Hughes, which is a new one for me. They're really good. Use some kosher salt, sprinkle it over your tomatoes, and set them aside to bring out the juices. Now the dough. 1 3/4 cup flour, 2 teaspoons baking powder, 1 teaspoon sugar, 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon salt. And then just blend all that together with in a food processor with the paddle mixer. And then you want to cut in the butter. So the butter can be room temperature or it can be cold. And I just cut it into little chunks of pieces, and then you use the paddle blender to blend it into what they say in the cooking world is pea-sized pieces. Basically, you just don't want it to be a really smooth batter yet, but you do want to get some of the chunks of butter incorporated. Okay, so now we are going to add some yogurt, and this is Mexican yogurt, which is a little bit tangier than Greek yogurt. I really like it. And so mix that in, 3/4 cup, and then I also added 1/4 cup of water, which I didn't show in the video here. So the dough is going to be sticky. Don't over mix it. Just kind of push it together with your hands, knead it together with your hands, and know that it's going to stick to your hands. Okay, piece of parchment paper, rub some flour or cornmeal on the bottom, and make your dough into a 5-inch round. You want to knead it like maybe, I don't know, 6 to 8 times. That helps. Okay, 5-inch round, put some flour on your rolling pin so that that doesn't stick. Remember, the dough is sticky. And then just start rolling into all the angles that you can get to make a nice circle. The idea is we're going to get to a 9-inch diameter circle in the end. So as your dough gets sticky onto the rolling pin, add more flour and keep going. And it looks like we're almost there. So let's measure. I have this measuring tape, 9 inches, about 9.5 inches all the way around. Looks good. Okay, so I am going to put this dough into a cookie sheet or a sheet pan, And then sprinkle a little more cornstarch onto the top of the dough. And just leave about 1.5 inches around the edges. So spread the cornstarch in the middle, leaving 1.5 inches around the diameter. Okay, now the rest of it. Cheese. I used Gouda cheese, white cheddar cheese. You can use any kind of cheese you want. You can use mozzarella. You will want to grate it though. So I grated 2 ounces of cheese, which is about 2/3 of a cup. Put that in a bowl and add 1/3 cup of mayonnaise. Okay. Then on your herbs, you can choose your herbs. I chose thyme and rosemary and just chopped it up, minced it pretty finely, and until I had about 1/4 cup. So if you like basil, you can use basil. Just, be creative with your herbs. Pick out your favorites. So this is about 1/4 cup, and add that to the bowl of your mayonnaise and cheese, and then take a spoon and mix it together. This is what's going to be dolloped on top of the tomatoes. Okay, mix that up pretty good. That should do it. And let's bring back our dough and our tomatoes. And now you're just going to put the tomatoes onto the dough in what's called a concentric pattern. So just a circle. Concentric pattern is a circle. Okay. Since I had all these fun colors, I just kind of arranged them so that the different colors would show, and fill in all the gaps. This is the boxcar Willie going on top. I like the bright red showing on the top. And then tuck in the rest of the tomatoes so that you've got a circle. Remember, you want about 1.5 inches on the outside that you're going to. So I cut that one in half to tuck it in so that I had a nice big circle. All right, now the fun part. Well, not quite. Then dollop some of the cheese mix onto each of the tomatoes, just the ones that are going to show. Remember, you don't want to go too far to the edge because you've got to save room on those edges. Okay? That's good, Dorothy. That's good. Let's go. All right. Now, the fun part is getting this rustic dough over the tomatoes. I started off using what's called a fish spatula, and I thought that would work pretty well, but it really didn't. My hands worked better. So it's called pleating. You just pull some of the dough over, and it makes these big pleats on it. Now, this is a lot easier if you had cornmeal or flour on the bottom of your parchment paper so that it doesn't stick. So remember to do that. Oh, and also remember, you need the oven to be preheated to 425. Sorry about that, I forgot. Now you may have a few little tears in your dough, so just take some water and use it just to paint over like you did when you were a kid with Play-Doh. Okay, into the oven 425 for 20 to 25 minutes, and we're done. Okay, time for the taste test. This is my husband, Chris, my professional taster, and professional in other things too. We can just eat this with our hands like a pizza, or you can eat it with a fork. Of course, he's going to go for the fork and I go with the hands, but I love this dough. He got the orange tomato, I got the red, and then I had in yellow tomatoes and all that kind of stuff. This is very savory. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's the herbs kind of make it.
I put rosemary and thyme in the crust, and it's really good. I used Gouda cheese. You can mix and match the cheeses, the herbs, everything. Freeform, rustic, delicious. Crostata. Yours can be a galette, and mine will be a crostata. Cheers.